No microphone today. Happy New Year, friends. Custom pulse monitors. Whoop whoop. Anyway, again, another amazing podcast. Had Stefan on from the Terrarium channel, and we don't talk about Borneo realist models at all. We talk about so many issues and dramas in the hobby. We talk about Pokemon card keeping, collecting. We talk about core species, what species are true to you. We talk about breeding. We talk about, I talk about like my theories and thesis on breeding. We also touch on another few hot topics on like rehoming animals, asking for help with animals, how to like address people who you're trying to message rather than just going how to lizard. Definitely one of my favorite conversations. Like this is a genuine amazing conversation. I'm so thankful for your time, Stefan, and your honesty and humility and your know-how and your wisdom. I feel like we didn't know each other and we just hit it off. I hope you feel the same. But yeah, we just hit it off, and it was at such an. I don't script my podcast, and this is again why I don't script my podcast. And you guys that have been following along are probably seeing that I'm very open and honest, and I like these deep, meaningful conversations. I like these conversations that are these questions that are running around in my head all the time, and having people with similar mindsets. Either because a few times again, Stefan's saying something, I'm saying I don't agree with this, and he's saying what about this, and I'm like, well, okay, yeah, what about that, and we bounce off each other amazingly. I think there's a lot to learn from this podcast. I think there's a lot to be said in this podcast. I'd love to hear what you all think in the comments. But I'll let the podcast speak for itself. Thanks for tuning in.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in today to the Captive Raptors podcast. I have a very special guest on today, Stefan from the Terrarium channel, and I'm really excited actually to dive into this because you keep arguably the coolest lizard in the world. So we'll touch on that a little bit. But for now, Stefan, would you like to introduce yourself, what you do, and what you keep?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for having me on. My name is Stefan, as you said. I'm Dutch. I live in the Netherlands, in the beautiful city of Groningen. Try to pronounce that.
Clonium.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, mid-30s. I'm a teacher at animal management education, and been keeping reptiles for a long time. And I'm a true animal caretaker at heart. But the reptiles definitely are on top of my list. Yeah, that's me.
That's cool. That's perfect. Because anyone who's seen your channel, and if they're watching this for Borneo realist monitors, I'm sure they have seen your stuff. Because you are the guy, if I say so, sort of humbly for you. But yeah, how long back did you sort of realize that you were into reptiles? Like, was it an innate passion from when you were really young, or were you a little bit older and then got curious?
Yeah, my whole family always been into animals. We always had animals, and I always was curious about nature in general. I loved playing with my dinos and Lego in combination. Jurassic Park was the dream. And at a young age, I think I was about 8 or 9, I was at a local friend at his home, and they had a terrarium with a pair of Phelsuma madagascariensis, the day geckos, Madagascar day geckos. And I just was so in awe about, like, I didn't know that was possible. That was the first time I was introduced in that world, and it was just so, wow, is this possible? Can you keep these animals in your home? And that from that day it was done. It was that was the moment I just knew. And luckily I had parents who let me indulge in that. My dad had a bookstore, so he gave me books about them. And my mother loved nature, and she was like all okay with it. So that's around, I think I was 10, I don't know for sure. We built, my father helped me build our first terrarium that looked very different to the terrariums as they look now, of course, when it comes to heating and ventilation. And I got the classic, how the Sexliniatus, the blue-tailed skinks, and the carolinensis. Sorry, I'm actually worse with common names.
No, it's cool.
The scientific names. The Anolis carolinensis, the Sexliniatus, etc. Those were all the species I got, and yeah, that was it. No turning back.
No, it's similar to me. My parents weren't as supportive. I wasn't really allowed reptiles, so when I moved out, I went a little bit crazy. But obviously, watching your channel, I'm terrible with Latin unless it's a Varanid. So sorry, everyone watching. But like I say, you do you and be. So how long did it take you to learn all the Latin? Because it seems so natural when I watch your videos and you're listing off all this Latin, like just rolling off the tongue. And I look at like the most simple ones like Varanus Varus, and I'm like, Veru. So it seems to come so natural for you. Was that almost like a natural thing and you could just roll off the tongue? Did you sort of study Latin in school, or did you just
I think oh, sorry for
No,
interrupting.
you carry on.
Yeah, I think the Dutch language in general and also the German language, etc., is very makes it already a little bit easier with the pronunciation. I feel like I had to talk with Dylan about this, about our pronunciation and the one in America and Canada and the UK. So I think it just makes it a little bit easier for us. And how I got into that, I don't really know. I think it started with using only the scientific names when I got heavily into keeping venomous snakes. For a lot of venomous snakes and a little bit of more odd species of other reptiles and animals, there are no real common names, or they are so diverse between countries that you automatically went to using scientific names. And also because it's very important, if you get bit by a viper, there are a lot of vipers, so you use the scientific name. So that's probably when it turned from the common names to the scientific names. And it also helps me a lot with looking for information, and I get such a different information than when I use the common language or the common names. And also I think with just the people surrounding me, we only talk in scientific names. It's super annoying for those around us who don't.
Yeah.
But we only talk, and it can be either what I call their last names. We always talk about regius. We never talk about ball pythons.
Yeah.
We talk about regius or gutata or whatever. So
No, that's it. I agree with you. I can't sit here and join in because I struggle with English, let alone speaking Latin as well as you do, speaking Dutch. I don't know if you obviously speak English, but I don't know if you speak any other languages. But for some reason, I always find it so credible because like we as British people, we're very, how can I say it? Stubborn, ignorant. We just seem to think our language is just the most, that's it, that's all you need to know. But then when you speak to people that are basically not native to England or America, so they don't speak English as their mother tongue, and then your English is just as good as mine, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, you can speak this and speak this. So I have the utmost respect for people that speak multiple languages, just because I struggle with my own that I've known for 28 years. So, but yeah, Latin for me, like I didn't know hardly any Latin until I started keeping monitors, and I got really passionate about monitors rather than just being a basic keeper. And I feel like that's when I took a step up. And then, like you say, people would say to you, "Oh, have you seen the spotted goanna?" And that could be Scalaris, Tristus, Timorensis, Bohemi. So that's when I realized I was like, okay, I need to start learning what these animals are. And because I'm just a monitor guy, I stuck with monitors, and then everyone throws all this other stuff in, and I'm like, yeah, they sound really cool.
Yeah, but that's how it goes. That's so lovely about our, I don't want to call it hobby, but the world we are in is just it's so expansive. There's so many options and animals that are intriguing. You can't know all of them. I know plenty of friends who are totally into turtles and that don't know anything about snakes, not even the most common ones, and it goes vice versa. I don't know nothing about spiders, for instance. I know a few, but the arachno world, that's totally different side of the hobby. So that's just how it goes. But as you mentioned, once you started to dig in a little bit more or start to get a little bit more serious about how you approached your keeping, you pretty much needed to use the scientific name, because otherwise you're not going to get the info you need.
Yeah, and that's sort of a good transition into the Lantanotis, if I am pronouncing that correctly. But when you've got such a secluded, rare, unknown species like Borneo earless monitors, how do you go about? So let's start at the beginning. When did you get your first Lanthanotis?
I got my first Lanthanotis, I actually checked before this podcast,
Okay,
in
perfect.
June 2018, and I had the first babies in August, September of 2021, so last year. So there was it didn't take too long.
No, it's good going.
Yeah, I'm certainly don't see myself as the guy for Lanthanotis, because I definitely was not the first one. I'm just the person that's available to the people when it comes to information via the channels that are commonly used nowadays. But that's when I first got them, and I actually got them after a friend of mine got them before me. He got 2 pairs. We have a little bit more now. We share a bit of that part of the collection. And he said, you need those, they're amazing. You need to have them. And I had a little luck with breeding Python bongers mai, the Malaysian blood pythons, etc. I kept a lot of those. And I could purchase, I bought 7 at once. And that's what started it. Yeah.
And how many Lanthanotis are in your care in your house? If you say you share some, so how many is just in your care at the moment?
In my care, I have 5 adult, sub-adult that can lay eggs, or at least the females of the group, and some young. After the video I posted lately about some young I hatched another clutch also, but I'm backtracking on all the footage.
Okay.
And yeah, then there's a few more.
So just a quick side question. Do you think they're your favorite species you've worked with, or are they just up there?
No.
They're not. What's your favorite? End of podcast. Thank you for tuning in. What's your favorite? I'm just curious. What's your favorite species you've ever worked with? I probably won't know what it is because you're going to say the Latin, but just which is your favorite species?
Well, it sounds very spoiled to say it, because I know a lot of people are very intrigued by these animals, and they are very intriguing, and there's still so much to learn about them. I'm sure also during this podcast you're going to figure out that there's a lot of stuff still we guess it's probably, but I think my most favorite species to work with, first of the Shinosaurus, I think are for a lot of keepers are a better choice. And some of my turtles, my tortoises, my Minoria, those are
leaps and bounds above.
Yeah. And just as you're a Varanus keeper, I've also kept some Varanus in the past. Some Gilleny, some Gillens, and Acanthurus, and also Crop Monitor.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So those I've also kept. That one in the time they were €1,500 and not 7 or 8K. Yeah. So I during my animal career, I've cared for and taken care of a lot of interesting animals, and the Lanthanotis are definitely awesome, but I wouldn't say
they're your favorite
at a pinnacle or something. Yeah.
No, that's I think so. As for example, my reptile club. So I've got I keep Prasinus, the green trees, Jobiensis, peach throats, Indicus, mangrove. I keep Acanthurus, so just Ackies. I keep Xanthematicus, so bosks or savanna monitors. I keep at the moment Timorensis, and I've had Glauidae, I've had Pilbarensis, I've had Dorienus. So I've kept a few monitor species. So I've kept some stuff that some people would really like and some cooler monitors. But then obviously I look at stuff like a Borneo earless monitor as never keeping one, as almost like that whoa sort of animal. But then when I was just keeping like basic stuff like a bearded dragon course, I would look at Prasinus, so the green trees, as like the whoa, and then you get there and you almost take it for granted because it's then in your home, because you've achieved that milestone as such, and you just see it as day-to-day life. So I'll live vicariously through you and excitement for the Lanthanotis, but I would like to touch on the Schindlersaurus as well at some point, because they're also a species that I'm enamored with and I do really enjoy. So over here in the UK, there's not many lantern. There's a few more Schindlersaurus than there are Lanternotus. I know there's a couple of people. I don't know if they want to be named, so I won't name names on this. But I know there's a couple of people with Lanternotus. Were they easy to acquire, or are they quite difficult? Because they're Appendix 1, aren't they, CITES?
They're actually CITES 2.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, they were proposed to be on CITES 1. So, but in 2017, they decided to put them on CITES listed 2, and then the EU Appendix B. So no, they weren't very difficult to acquire actually. Or I won't say they're everywhere.
No,
That's
definitely
not the case. But because of the people I knew within the hobby, and because I knew somebody who already had them, and it was relatively, don't want to say easy for me, but
yeah,
it
you
was
had a
not
foot in the
crazy.
door.
Yeah, and because they're not CITES 1, it sure makes it easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually often get the question on my videos, like where can I buy them? And I never share that information because first off, like you mentioned, it's not up to us to share another person's info.
Yep.
That's only for those. And also because I feel like that if you are properly looking for info and you're really interested in a species, whatever species it is,
You'll find it.
you will find somebody. You will find an old ad or a new ad, and if you roll into the websites or the Facebook groups or whatever, you will find them. So yeah.
No, that's actually a really good point. And something I've not thought of because I just do it. I just find them. Like when I wanted Prasinus, I found them. They're not that common over here. Appendix 2 as well, and now obviously UK being outside of the European Union, getting an animal from mainland Europe is a lot harder. So I guess that's a very good point just to touch on quickly. And I have heard you say that because I watched your channel because even though I don't know what you're talking about when you talk about the Latin, I really enjoy your content and the way that you make it and how your terrariums are set up. So I watch you for that regard. But yeah, when you're dealing with an animal, any animal for that matter, because no animal's worth more than any other, all animals are sentient beings. But when you're dealing with these rarer cryptic animals that there aren't that much information on, you shouldn't really be given it on a plate. Like you say, you should have to research and find it and not just expect someone to go. Like I get really lots of messages on Varanus indicus, the mangrove monitor. And I get people asking me to give them a care guide over Instagram. And I'm like, I've been keeping mine for 3 years and I've only scratched the surface on how to look after these animals. And you want me to tell you how, but the thing is, you can't say that over Instagram because you come across as pretentious. So you have to go, yeah, of course, do this X basking spot, X temperature for water, X depth of substrate. But that is literally like reading the blurb of a book, just reading the back, So I do agree with that point. But then this is a counterproductive question because I'm going back on myself. But when you get a species like Lanternotus, where obviously you've got your friend who's got them, so I assume you and him did some backwards and forwarding, but where would obviously the internet, but where would your first point of call be to go to find out some information about a rarer species like Lanternotus?
There actually was a very great website about Lanternotus in this particular case. So that did help. There are people that have been keeping them in the state for a bit and that built great websites about them. But in general, if you're looking for info about a species that is lesser known or is relatively new, what I do is I try to find out and I'm stuck now on what the website is. Every time, if you look for the scientific name, the website will pop up and you can see when they are originally described.
Okay, yeah, I use iNaturalist quite a lot.
Yeah, that helps, and I almost feel like looking for it right now, but
no, you can look for it. It's cool, man. I'll ramble while you look if you like.
Oh, perfect.
But yeah, so like for me, when I get rarer species, not that anything I have is ridiculously rare, but like for example, let's say Indicus, because I mentioned it. You go online, go straight to YouTube, Varanus Indicus, and then all of a sudden 20 videos pop up, and 15 of those videos is just an indicus kept in a 40-gallon enclosure being fed a live mouse or something like that. So as a bit more experienced keeper, I see it. Have you found it?
Yeah. But
Okay.
go ahead.
No, okay, cool. As a bit more of an experienced keeper, I see that and go, well, that's clearly wrong. But then it worries me. I guess Lantanotis are lucky because they're priced a little bit higher, but Indicus in the States is like $100. So then these people buy this $100 lizard, go onto YouTube, look at how to care for an Indicus, put it in a tiny enclosure with some cypress mulch and a tiny little water bowl, and then they die in 6 months because they've not bothered to do the research. But a good website to do the research is
Well, what I always start with species that like lesser known is the reptile database,
Mhm.
and that one often states some articles on which they were described, and then when the holotype is found and when they are originally found. So for the type locality is Sarawak for Lantanotis, and then I try just their scientific name into Google simply to look for info, but I never combine it with care or whatever. And if I look on YouTube for those species, I often find videos, more of them just being seen in the wild. And I try to use that info. And if there's absolutely no info on the species itself, I look for species that are found in the same area to at least get some more data on the microclimates in there, or what vegetation is there, or what works for those animals, and then try to translate it a little bit to those lesser kept species. And of course, the best source for any species is the breeder.
yes.
But then you gotta have at least, like you mentioned, you don't want to give just everything on a platter and having somebody. It feels lazy for you as a breeder if somebody comes to you and they only ask, "What's the price and how much how big does the setup need to be?"
Yeah.
And then I always start with look for your own info, make your assumptions of that, and based on how much experience you have in the hobby and with the techniques there are, and you already have that base, and you try to apply that. And okay, I think I need to do this. Are there any details or is there anything specific I need to think about that I cannot find? So I always start with, this is what I found thus far, this is the setup I have in mind, shoot.
Yeah. No,
And that helps.
that's a very good point as well, because like I've only ever bred Aki monitors, and there's 1,000,001 care sheets out there on Aki monitors. But if and when I ever breed something more eclectic like Indicus or Jobiensis or Prasinus, if someone came to me and said, right, I want to buy a Prasinus, how do I care for it? I'd feel a little bit more like, oh, do I? Again, all animals are same value, but especially when you've got this more rarer, higher tier, and let's be honest, higher monetary figured animal. For me, it makes no difference, because if I cared about the money, you'd just sell the animal, you wouldn't care. But in my head, I'm like, you've got these like, and again with an Aki, it's going to be a little bit more forgiving with mistakes, but like Lantanotis or Prasinus, they're not. And you think to yourself like, oh, if you don't even know like what basking spot to give it or what percentage UVB or what UVI range it needs, then you can't buy from me. But again, I feel like the hobby, how do I word it again without coming across as a twat, but I feel like people, they criticize you for not giving you everything. At the same time, I try and be as helpful as I can, but there's only so many hours in a day, and people almost attack you for not giving you all the information. Do you get any like negative feedback if you're obviously helping to go to my videos? I make all this great content. Like, I haven't got all the time in the world to tell you everything in the sun. But again, your videos are great for, if I would want to buy a Lantanotis, I know I could go to your channel and definitely get a very good idea on what I was doing. Like, I've never kept aquariums, I haven't got a clue. You did a really good video on like different, we'll talk about it in a bit, but like different nitrates and the levels of the water and how you're testing it. For someone like me, I could watch that 3 or 4 times and make notes, and then it would eventually stick in my head. But do you do you find people are fairly understanding when you're like, I'm not going to give you everything, or do you find people are a bit more annoyed?
Honestly, I can't really answer that question, because if I choose not to give you info, that's for a good reason, and then it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
And I'm very used to saying no, try it yourself first, because I also work as a teacher, and sometimes you also have to do that for students.
Yeah.
So that can be almost annoying for some people. And again, it also depends on how they approach me. If somebody says, I've been looking for this and that, but I can't really figure this out, can you help me with this? No problem. I always try to make time. I'm very busy, so not always as fast as I would like to.
Yeah.
But then I give you all the info, or I just say, check out the video, depending on what your message is. But I never had anybody respond negatively to that. The only, what I would say, less positive reactions I get on the videos is from people that say, hey, these, maybe we can also get into that a little bit. From especially from Indonesia, like, hey, you're not supposed to have these animals. And honestly, that's a little bit of a controversial topic, of course. But I don't register that as negative. I register that as a critical point of view, like, hey, how did you acquire these animals? Because they are rare, and yeah, there's some controversy about how they got in the hobby. So I fully understand those questions, and I think it's great that people are so protective about their native species. So
yeah, we can touch on that now whilst we're on it, because it's sort of fresh in our minds. It's a hard one. My opinion on the reptile hobby, full stop, is we keep lizards in boxes, and it doesn't matter if you have a huge, massive vivaria or a tiny little fish tank. There's a lizard in a box. But on the same side of that coin, every single animal that's in captivity, full stop, dog, cat, fish, pigs, sheep, cows, they've all come from the wild somewhere down the line once upon a time. So people that, this is different to, like you say, people from Indonesia saying this is our like protected native species, or because you see some animals, the idea is slipping from my mind right now, but like certain, like in cultures, the animals would be like protected and prestigious, and then obviously we're keeping them in boxes or whatever the case may be. But if you're not a complete vegan and you don't have a pet, then you don't really have a leg or a horse in the race to say what we're doing is wrong. Because if you eat meat, I eat meat, I've got no issue with people that eat meat. But if you say, oh, these animals deserve to be in the wild, one, you're slaughtering farm animals for your own pleasure. And two, yes, I agree, but if you look at Borneo, Lantanotis, the deforestation is an alarming rate. We've all seen the videos and statistics. I'm sure you're a lot more educated on the subject than I am. But the day will come one day, might be 10 years, might be 100 years, might be 150 years, might be tomorrow. We all hope it doesn't come, but a day will come, if man is still allowed to continue being the destructive species we are, that there will be no wild. We see it, like, for example, stuff like axolotls. You just talk to someone about axolotls, they'll go, oh, okay, cool. They're everywhere. But then there's only like 2 native lakes that they're found in, full stop. And I believe one of them's dried up and one of them's drying up. And then stuff like thylacines, the bloody, not Tasmanian devil tiger, I can't forget the common name, but thylacine. They were just in zoos at one point. That was it. And there was only like one left. And you get there was the species of, not like, there was like a certain species of Galapagos tortoise, Lonesome George. He was the last of his species because we all destroyed it. And there's this sort of middle bound between being the invisible arc, which I do and don't agree with, and we can breed and protect and preserve these animals. And then there's also the side of it, like I say, that you can have a dog, why can't we have a lizard? So that's sort of my opinion on it. And again, that's just for people saying they shouldn't be kept in in here people that aren't as educated. But what's your opinion on it? Without, if you don't want to get in trouble, because it is controversial.
Yeah, it's such a philosophical question almost that you can't really answer it with one or two answers. It's such a deep question. I think the people that respond to my videos want to notice is that Borneo and Malaysia and Indonesia have officially, there shouldn't be any Borneo Ilias monitors except for 2 exports that ever left Borneo. So these people are like, okay, they shouldn't have left the country, but somehow they ended up in Europe. How is that possible? And my first reaction is then always like, if it will be illegal, I wouldn't be the smartest person to put it on YouTube and say like, hey,
Yeah.
check this out.
Yeah.
But I do get those questions. But it's a hard one to answer, honestly, because as you mentioned, the whole island, the deforestation is incredible. The reason these animals are rediscovered and found more and more is because they are found in the agricultural lands. And I'm sure there are some people going into the forest knowing where they are found and taking them, but they are mostly rediscovered in areas because people are now getting into the areas of where they are living. So yeah, of course, in comparison, if 10 ended up in Europe and now they are bred, it's not going to have the same impact as deforestation. Doesn't make this right, but somehow the Lanthanotis is like the species people focus on, while a lot of Boyga where you just talked about before the podcast, from the Philippines. Somehow we got animals from the Philippines. Nobody talks about those, and so I do get them. But as I mentioned, I don't think that the animals that we have here impact that anymore. And the way that the Lanthanotis is used to go against smuggling and illegal pet trade in the pet trade in general, I definitely believe it's misused. And all the animals now in Europe, their situs to appendage B, I get checked every year by the local government on what animals I have. They want to see my pictures, my documents. We need to keep an active administration on our computer to everyone we buy from or to. So that's heavily controlled. So that's why it is possible for us now. And also, honestly, not worth it to get any animals from Borneo. It's just not worth it. Everybody thinks they're crazy expensive, but they used to be 25K, I believe, when they just come on.
Yeah.
But I won't sell exact prices, but they won't go above 1K now anymore.
It's a hard one, isn't it? Because, for example, Varanus indicus, I absolutely love Varanus indicus. I don't believe there's a massive market for them because they're obviously big and defensive. But let's just say Varanus. No, Prasinus is probably a better example. Let's say Prasinus. For a long time, Prasinus was being imported out of Indonesia, and they would end up in homes where it's a display only pet. I've got no issue with that. I currently do not breed Prasinus. I have them as pets. I believe 2 of mine are wild caught. One definitely is. I brought it from somebody who had it imported from. So I hope to breed that one soon. But my point on that is you get these animals and they come from the wild. Like my indicus will be wild caught. I also do want to breed her, because I believe if you have an animal that's taken from the wild, you have a duty as such to try and breed it so you can then relieve the need to be taken out of the wild. And then you have my girlfriend's just come home and she's decided to come into the podcast room. Sorry. So you have this need, because obviously, like Prasinus, it's a highly desirable animal. So the importers or the catchers or the poachers or whatever you want to say, same as Lanthanotis would have been, they're just trying to feed their family. And if we were there walking in their shoes, we would be doing the same. So people do blame the poachers, but then if they weren't being poached to be coming here, they would have either just been killed with the deforestation and the farming for like palm oil and all that other fun stuff that we as humans take for granted. So I do think people like yourself, you've taken these animals that are this prestigious high one, and now you're breeding them. So regardless of how or where anyone's came from, you and others are basically stopping the stress from the wild and the importers. So there's genuine captive bred, and we should always support captive bred, always. But when there isn't captive bred, like Indicus, for me to get a male, I've probably got to get a wild animal. And then you have to question yourself, is it moral to be able to get a wild animal to breed, to then get captive bred animals for potentially no market? And that's the sort of stuff that goes in on my brain all the time, because I'm thinking to myself, is it worth it? With Prasinus, yes, because there is a demand. With Lanthanotus, I'm sure there is a demand. Same with Schindlersaurus, I'm sure there is a demand. But as keepers, we need to be sensible and realistic and ethical, because there's no point in breeding animals that aren't going to find forever loving homes. But there's also no need to be stealing from the wild if you're just going to put it in Bavaria and not try and breed it, because that's not sustainable either. So like you say, there's a podcast in itself, and I'm happy to talk about it like as much as possible, because this sort of stuff I like probably more so, because this is the stuff that people don't really talk about. It's the stuff that you might talk about to your friends, or I talk to my friends, but it's not really publicly out there because people are not necessarily scared to share their opinions, but they don't want the backlash, because no matter what you say, this is the problem with opinions. There's always two, there's yours, mine, and then the truth. There's always those three, and the opinion will sit one side or the other. So I do believe that wild animals should try to be bred, so you don't have to import from the wild. But like I say,
but I totally like agree. It's such a almost philosophical question, as you mentioned. We are the whole animal caretakers or keepers in spectrum in the basics is very egotistical, because we do this because we like it.
Yeah,
we enjoy it. We enjoy to keep these animals. And of course, when I had the Salvadori, the reason I sold it, because every time I looked at that animal and I could see those pupils, moving like a parrot, I was like, you don't deserve this, this I'm not doing you right,
yeah.
And that's something I struggle with as a person who keeps animals. That's something I always struggle with. Like, am I a bad person almost? That's the question I sometimes ask myself. And what you say is still totally right. If we get animals from the wild, you should definitely try to breed them to relieve the stress from the wild populations. On the other hand, do we really need more animals in our hobby? Because our hobby is already filled with amazing animals, and I'm very protective of our hobby. We face a lot of threats from positive lists or just straight up bans to keep certain animals. I also don't like that, but I would say that if one or two species die off in the hobby,
It's not a bad thing.
no, I don't think so, because maybe those are not fit to be kept in the hobby. And yes, the same with Lanthanotus and a whole lot of other species. I'm actually getting a species in December. You won't find any video on YouTube.
Little spoiler there for you guys. Go and subscribe to check it out.
From Sri Lanka. It's
okay.
But where did I go with?
Species
the
that you
Lanthanotus is
yeah.
indeed like how much animals did it cost to get to where we are now? And with the Lanthanotus, luckily, is relatively small amount, and they actually lay quite an amount of eggs. And like I mentioned, I got mine in the middle of 2018. At the end of 21, I already had eggs.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, I'm not the guy. I'm just a person that is found.
Yeah.
But yeah, how much did it cost? So I think the species we have now, we should definitely, embrace and do our best to keep them and constantly evolve our care. And that's why I also share all the information I have. Like, this is how we do it, and maybe it works, maybe it don't, because I feel like that's what we need to do as, a community, to make sure that we, keep those animals in our hobby. But I don't feel like there needs to be any more animals. We can go a lifetime.
Yeah, no, I 100% resonate with what you're saying. I'm actually glad that this podcast is going this direction. Because it is such a controversial topic, like Xanthomatogus, savanna monitors, or bloody hell, I'm gonna get the Latin mixed up on it, but Nolocticus, Nile monitors, whatever that one is.
Nitolicus, I believe.
Nitolicus, yeah. See, dyslexia, letters.
No problem.
Nile monitors, and you'll know it, I won't. Reticulated pythons. Well, I do this there somewhere, but the Latin and reticulated pythons and stuff like that, and green anacondas and species like that. There's a few of us, not me, but or Salvadori, the croc monitors. There's a few of us that can do it really well, but there's not enough to sustain. You don't need to breed. You don't need to keep importing them because there's only 2% of keepers that can do it properly. Same as iguana. They don't need to be bred in numbers. Maybe 10 a year to be dotted about over Europe. Maybe. Same as Indicus. Like I say, I want to breed Indicus because I want Indicus for the rest of my life. I don't want to breed Indicus to supply the masses because I don't know if I could, one, if I could sell the babies, and two, I don't know if people are. I don't know if I do it all that well, let alone somebody else. And I think it's good that you're self-aware in the sense of with your Salvadori. You're like, I'm not doing you justice. I think a lot of people don't get to that point and they go, oh no, it's fine, or oh, it's okay, or so. I appreciate your honesty. I'm really thankful for that because I'm the same, and I question every day, and this is not an exaggeration. I literally question every day, and I say to my girlfriend sometimes, I say to her, I'm like, what am I doing all this for? Like, should I just sell them all and then that's it? I don't keep them because I keep lizards in boxes, and is it ethical and is it moral? And she's like, no, but you love them. And I'm like, yeah, I do. But like you say, it's a very narcissistical way of looking at it because it's just for me. It's for nobody else. It's just for me. And I think to myself, right, when they all die, I'll keep them all to old age. When they all die, then I won't get any more. And then I find myself buying another species, and you're constantly going in this endless cycle.
I do exactly the same, and I think because we have that feeling, like, am I doing this right? Then that's also the reason I sometimes get annoyed by videos on YouTube of other people, and I really don't pay attention to that. But sometimes I see people, they buy like one species of one certain sort of at-risk species, and often they are even not, but we think they are. And they are like, yeah, I'm keep this one, and one day I will breed it for conservation. And then I'm like, you're not. It's not ever gonna go back in the wild. Their habitat is gonna go down and down and down. So it's a way for us to I forgot the language, to justify maybe what we are doing a little bit more. But it's sometimes that's why I get annoyed by that. On the other hand, I don't know where to go. That's why it's such a crazy topic.
It's good though, and again, I agree. I'm 100% in agreement. But some people will, like I said to you before the podcast, I like to play devil's advocate. Some people will say, not me, not you, by the sounds of things, which is great. In my head, is the right opinion, obviously, because I think that way. But some people will be sitting at home watching this and going, no, it's my right to have this, and I deserve to have this, and I have a need to have this. And I think personally, my opinion on this is, if you're not questioning what you're doing is ethical and moral and the best for the animals, then you're not doing it right. Because even if you're doing it right, you should always strive to do it better every single day. Whether that's literally like something silly, like adding a bit more depth to the enclosure, adding some more enrichment, adding some new lighting, heating, different technologies. But for those people that think it's their right, I think they're the people that cause the problems, in my opinion.
They could be. Yeah, but it's probably also based on laws and culture and how things are perceived. And I really don't care what my government thinks about this in the form of how I personally think about keeping these animals. But I struggle with absolutely the same things because, like you mentioned, I'm just going to keep it at this, and I haven't bought new animals in over a year. That's never happened.
That's good going.
Yeah. But on the other hand, I have those feelings, but I also know I'm not. I don't want to, come off egotistical, but I'm not a bad animal caretaker.
Yeah.
I know what I can do. I know what the animals need, and sometimes I choose not to go only a certain point, even though I know I can go further because I still want to keep that turtle or that lizard or whatever. And so it's super hard to balance that. And I think just having a little bit of doubt, that's probably all you need. Just having a little bit of doubt about what you're doing, and sometimes ask yourself a question. That's probably already enough for us keepers to do. And Dylan and Liam and you now also are often talking about just progressing. And I think a little bit of doubt will absolutely help with that. And I think we need to keep doing that. So I don't feel like me keeping and breeding the Lanthanotus is helping with conservation. The same with all the turtles I have. All the turtles I have are either endangered or some are functionally extinct.
Yeah.
And of course I will try to preserve them in the hobby because they are amazing animals. And I know, looking at least how I feel about animal care and how they are doing and how I see them interacting with their environment they are in, I feel like, okay, those are suited to be kept the way I'm doing it. And those are, those can have a good life in captivity because, the nature isn't Disney, so in some forms they also have a good life over here.
Yeah. I agree. And I'm basically, I've just sold them today, actually. I have a trio of Timorensis, Timor monitors. They're only 2 years old, captive bred trio. And I'll be completely honest, as much as I think I care for them fine, and I've had clutches of eggs from both females, but they're not quite old enough to be fertile and get going yet. Next year after, probably be the best year. But either way, I've sold those so I can downsize my collection a little bit, so I can upgrade some species I'm truly passionate about. My Indicus, my Jobiensis, my Prasinus. I want to get some Gillonile, and so the Mulga monitors. But then again, you're going, I'm selling some to get some. So I'm trying not to buy anything as well myself. And I haven't brought anything I don't know when, but I haven't brought anything for a while. And also having no space is good because it stops you buying stuff. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't have any space. Oh, I'm glad I don't have any space because it keeps me true to my collection. So like I said, I'm selling my Timors purely because you can't juggle 50 balls at once. You're better off having, in my opinion, a few species done really, really, really well than having 20 species and you're trying to figure out this one. And once you've got a species dialed in, it's different. But like for me, I'm really trying to figure out Indicus. But if I've got to spend even 30 minutes on the Timors, that takes away 30 minutes from my observations, my studies, my research into Indicus. And I've managed to get 3 clutches of eggs from my female this year, all through planned cycling and triggering vitellogenesis. And to my knowledge, no one in the UK has been successful with Indicus in the sense of the reproductive cycles because they are very seasonal triggered. And I haven't done that by luck. I've done that by putting a lot of time and effort into it. But there comes a point where you have to better your care, but there's only so many hours in the day. So sadly, the Timors, I don't want to sell them, but for the better of for my collection. And also as well, this is a hot topic, so we'll get into it whilst we're on hot topics. Money. So we all want it, we all need it, we all think about it. I think, in my opinion, anyone who breeds an animal and says they don't do it for money at all, at some level, is lying to themselves.
We all have budgets. We have a budget when it comes to money, but also energy and or attention. Simple fun, and how much stress we can take to take care of certain animals, because there are going to be days that it's not going to be fun.
But I want to eventually breed Prasinus. I want to breed Prasinus for the love of the species, making sure that they are in captivity, because they are a good captive in the right homes. But yeah, let's be honest, we're doing it for money as well. We want the hobby to sustain itself. And again, I think people that say they're not doing it for any, it may not be the top priority, because I say to people, because the problem is, you've probably seen it in Europe, the hobby goes through cycles. Like, for example, Mexican black king snakes, everyone breeds them, they become dirt cheap, same as Akis at the moment. Everyone sells them, there's no one breeding them, so they shoot up in price, and then everyone breeds them and they drop, and then the cycle continues. So I say to people, like, talking to me, like, oh, I want to make a business for reptiles and I want to do this. I say, well, if you start with animals that you aren't passionate about, you're always going to lose. Always going to lose. Like, if I never get an egg from any of my animals ever, yes, it's going to cost me a lot more money, but I still love the animals. And if I can get a monetary figure to if someone walked into my reptile room and said, I will give you £10,000 for your mangrove monitor, I would say no, because I am so in love with that lizard. So it's like a dog. You wouldn't sell your pet dog. But if someone came into my reptile room and offered to buy my Timors, which they have, I'd go, yeah, okay, cool. So I know that species isn't for me, because obviously everyone has a price on everything. If someone offered me $1 million, I'd have to probably think about it. But in the levels of realism, I wouldn't put a monetary figure on my Prasinus, my Indicus, my Jobiensis. So I know that those species are for me. Do you feel the same with that, or do you see them a bit more monetary based, or do you not look at it that way?
I can sustain my collection with my income, and if I don't breed, it's okay. But if I breed, I can buy something else, or can buy a nicer setup. So and the question you say now, like, our hobby goes through ups and downs. At the moment, we have, of course, the energy crisis.
Yes.
And some people are suffering way worse than us, but that's actually a good moment for, I see it's a moment for people to look at their collections and go, like, which ones am I truly fascinated by, passionate about, maybe a childhood dream that you finally have, like my big-headed turtles, my platysternals, and which ones do I have on the side? Seems we're talking about live animals, but as a collective mind that we have, I have all 3 Monoria species. Maybe 1 or 2 would also be okay, but there are 3, so I need all 3 of them.
Yeah.
And that happens with, pythons with other colors, or Lampropeltis. It's such a beautiful genus. It can happen without you noticing so fast. And this is indeed the moment that a lot of people are, like, reevaluating that, like, okay, where am I spending my time, my energy, and which ones I really want to preserve, and which ones are gonna be, maybe off to a better home. And sometimes I see people online getting a lot of flack, I believe they call it, for buying an animal and then a year later selling it again. And honestly, I really don't mind. Dylan did an amazing episode about this, about that, actually the feeling and that you are, maybe the dream about having something can sometimes look a whole lot better than actually having it can be. And I'm totally okay with people trying something, realizing it, and then if it's not okay, then I don't keep it because out of guilt or what people are going to do, as long as it's not a impulsive buy, but it's a rational decision. And I would fully understand. The same with your Timorensis. I'm sure you will love them, and if you are going to catch them to put them in a box, there's going to be this moment of doubt, like,
I've already got it. All right, I've taken the deposit today, and I've gone, oh God, what have I done?
Yeah, it's done. The decision has been made. I have the same when I put on animals for sale, even with captive bred. Like, okay, the decision has been made. So as long as you have that feeling and you're making a rational and informed decision, and you just found something out. Life is about finding out and learning, including in this hobby. Yeah. That's just the cycle of life and how our hobby is, and you will see that certain animals will be your base, and there's some stuff around there, and if you need to make choices, this will change, but this will always stay the same. So for you, that's the Indicus. and the Prasinus. And maybe when you have bred those 10 years, you're like, it's time for another species. That's totally okay.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree, and I think you've worded that beautifully and perfectly, better than I ever could. Because it is true. We have I had, like I say, I had Glauidae, Kimberley rocks, I had Pilbarensis, the Pilbara rock monitors, I had Dorianus, all within the last couple of years, and I'm a monitor guy, and I'm trying my flavors, and it's almost like you're at a all you can eat buffet, and then you've got all these species, and especially the rarer ones, because there's not so much on them to compare, and you can't just go to someone's house to play with it and see if you like it. So you try it and you have it 6 months to a year, and you go, this species really isn't for me. And that's why I personally don't like beginner species, because you go to a reptile shop and they sell you on a corn snake or a bearded dragon, and then 99% of keepers, then, like you say, that isn't their core. Yes, you need that foundation species to develop your craft, as it were. But then, for example, you go from a bearded dragon, and if you're like me, I really like Ackies, and then Ackies don't quite do it. Then you go to Prasinus and then Indicus. And yeah, perfectly worded, because if you've done it on impulse and then you go, oh no, it's not for me, then you should feel guilty, because it is a life. But if you've cared for that animal to the best of your ability the whole time you've had it, you've never neglected it, you are in love with it, but you know someone else could do it better justice, or it isn't a core and you're trying to narrow your core, like me with the Temerensis, bang on. I don't want to sell them. I want to keep them. I want to try and breed them, and I want to try and work with them. But I know to give them the justice I give my Indicus, I just don't have the time. And again, that's why I think it's important for keepers to be self-aware. And a lot of times you see people getting a bit of a slump with their hobby, so they'll buy new species rather than revamp or look into their core pillar. That's perfectly what I'm going to keep that. Like, that is so true. I like that.
I just thought of that. So that
Well, just pretend you've known it forever, because
Okay.
it's true. Like, it's so that you're right. Like, I didn't know what my core was, and 5 years ago my core wasn't Indicus and it wasn't Prasinus. And in 10 years from now it might not be Indicus and it might not be Prasinus. So you are perfect on that, but it is hard to learn, and we should probably consider ourselves lucky that we've found our core for now, because some people are still like lost trying to find it.
Yeah, and that's also because we live in, or because I think one of the reasons is that we live in a world like social media. The amount of annuls I see now is astonishing.
Yeah.
So we know about so much more, and then as I mentioned, we every hobbyist, not only in our hobby but also with trains and books and Pokemon cards and shoes. More is what us humans do, and there comes a certain point, and I don't want to denounce the fact that we are talking about living animals and that people need to be aware. There comes a point you become a little bit more aware of that, and then it takes a year before you buy another species, as you mentioned. And I really liked what you said with the podcast with Liam on the reptiles and research, that you want bigger enclosures.
Yeah.
So you almost prevent yourself from doing that, because we know we are wired this way, and being aware of that already helps. But also, preventing that way really helps. It doesn't only benefit your animals.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I have quite an amount of animals. I don't consider myself to have a lot of animals compared to some of my friends, but I don't, have just a few.
Mm-hmm.
But the advice I give to everyone, if they are saying like, should I buy this rack with 2 setups or 3? I always say, just do 2. You're gonna enjoy just as much, maybe even more. Your animals are gonna be off better, and you have more money, energy, attention span left for relatively less animals. So everyone will benefit from that. It's just hard to keep myself to that rule.
It's very true, because I spoke about this on the podcast I've just recorded that's not out yet, funnily enough, with, again, another experienced keeper. And I think as you become an experienced keeper, you realize that less is more. but you almost have to walk that path to figure it out. Because I could say to someone just starting the hobby, just get yourself 2 lizards in massive enclosures and you will be, I'm getting goosebumps because that's what I want, but I'm in too deep now. But you will be so much happier having a bearded dragon in a 6x3x3 than you will having 6 bearded dragons in 4x2x2s. Like, you'll just be so much happier. But I don't think people will listen, myself included, until you've had that epiphany yourself. Like, one day it just, and then you realize your whole reptile journey's been a lie and you need to reavert. But yeah, I don't think people listen until they know.
Yeah, but you know, we learn best from our own experiences, you know, so that's okay. We need to fall and learn from that, and I've fallen quite a few times. But as you mentioned, and I think that will also help, and I'm sure Dylan and everybody, and you have also talked about this. That also helps with, you know, when we think about an animal, the anticipation of having it and actually having it can be 2 different things. You still need to take care of it. And that's why I do think that Lanthanotus is a very interesting species, because when I got back into snakes, I was very enthusiastic about getting the idea of getting some species again and maybe breeding them. But all the techniques, the way I set them up, and everybody liked how I set them up, but the way I set them up, the techniques I used, the lights, it was all the same. I knew what was going to happen, and except for giving them maybe a bigger setup, there wasn't any real development also on my side, except for maybe learning more about their behavior. You know, but you know, it stopped at a certain point. And with some species still, you know, you need to try to find a species that you can constantly look to learn from and grow the way you keep them and tweak, you know. We want to tweak and try and you know, and that's for instance the reason I love my saltwater aquarium, but I can't keep a normal aquarium going for 3 months, because once I have that start up and I decorated it and I thought about all the plants and putting all the fish in, and that's all swimming. Yeah, they're great animals, but it's done.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because I've always said, and I said on, if you watch my podcast I did with Liam, or I was on Liam's, I said the day that I know it all is the day I will knock it on the head and I'll sell everything and never keep an animal ever again.
And probably we will never know it all. You know,
exactly.
You can go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. But for most hobbyists, it goes to a certain point and they stop there. Yeah. And if nothing changes, you know, then, and some people consider their pets a pet, and they're great. But I don't keep dogs for a reason. I don't need a pet.
Yes, I know what you mean, because I see this growing trend at the moment, on especially in the varanid world, but you probably see it in all manner of species. But I don't really look at other species. I just stay in my little lane. But for some reason, everyone wants these puppy dog tame reptiles, and everyone wants these reptiles to be shoulder dragons. And don't get me wrong, again, I don't want to come across as hypocritical. I have videos on my Instagram or even my YouTube of my tree monitors on me, but that is. I try and be an open as honest as I can. That is me standing there for 7 hours waiting for him to jump onto me to get a 2-second Instagram clip. But for some reason, people are sacrificing welfare and sacrificing almost like the animal's natural like behaviors in order to have the super tame puppy dog, tegus, Bosque monitors, Prasinus, even like stuff in the Indicus complex. You see so many people with like Dorienus mini croc monitors. For those of you who don't know what a Dorienus is, but bluetail monitors are basically the one down from crocs you don't want to mess with. Like holding them and cuddling them, and you think to yourself, like, that animal must be so depressed for it to be able just to be so.
And I really don't know, but it's also, you know, I teach at the animal care and management education, and we use animals a lot. A lot of our animals get handled.
It's a good point.
You know, and but that's also because it has a purpose. You know, so maybe you can again justify it that way.
Yeah,
you
it's a good
know.
point. It's a good point.
And you know, a lot of people, you also don't want your animal to totally freak out every time it sees you. So there's a balance there has to be found. And I don't think that an animal, if you take it like once a week for 30 minutes, you know, short-term stress, there's even some articles and research that short-term stress is actually okay or even better.
Yes.
You know, as long it's different to long-term stress where they're next to a door, constantly over or underheated. There are predators making them, or they don't have any height, or the wrong lighting that flickers all the time. That's bad stress. But the animal being like for a bit,
Yeah.
you know. But I also, it's cool. You know,
Yeah.
I
Well,
would love for my
it's
self-ability
justified.
to be like, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
They are so incredible, but I absolutely don't have the need to hold any of my animals.
Yeah. It's
But maybe that goes down when you keep animals for 30 years. You know, maybe that's the difference.
yeah.
But um, that's also why I said I don't need. If I don't have a dog because I don't need a pet. These are exotic or unusual animals I care for, but they're certainly not pets in the general sense. And I also don't treat them that way, and I don't need them to be handled, but I would like them to be calm, you know. I'd rather see my turtles walk up my way when they get food, which is some sort of an unnatural reaction,
Yes.
you know, but it's not a one that creates a long-term stress that will be a detriment to their health. You know,
No,
if you take it
I
out,
100% agree. I agree.
yeah, and if you take it out constantly, or when it's gravid, or when it's in shed, etc., you know, eventually we choose when to handle the animal. That the animal doesn't get a choice, so we
Yeah.
need to be again aware of that and make considerations if it is justified, yes or no, apart from our ego.
You make very good points because
Yeah.
just to caveat and be 100% clear for people watching, I am not against handling animals at all. I'm against forcefully and making animals do stuff for our benefit. If you're Salvadori or your Prasinus or your Lanzanotis or your Schindler, so whatever species you keep, if it's coming onto you or you can scoop it up and it's not then I'm all for it. And I 100% agree that an animal, when you walk into the room, if it runs off and it's hiding, it's frantic and it's stressing, then you clearly need to put some work in so that animal is then at least okay with your presence. I 100% agree with all your points. But my Indicus, for example, when she's in her enclosure, I'm looking at it now, when she's in her enclosure, I can get right up to the glass and she just looks at me. She might ram the glass because she goes into a feeding response because she associates me with food, but she doesn't run, she doesn't hide, she doesn't panic. When I open the door, she comes out, she'll come up and down my reptile room, I'll tongue feed her, and I'm target training her at the moment. And again, that is because it's cool, let's be honest. I'm like, yeah, look how cool this indica, but it's also to try and break her feeding response so I can do maintenance in her enclosure for much easier. But when I touch her or when I hold her, she hates it and she'll try and run a little bit. Then she goes into freeze mode and I know she doesn't like it. So I just don't do it unless I absolutely have to. But that doesn't mean I don't interact with her. And that doesn't mean I play with her. I do get her out and I do interact with her. So when I say to people, I don't think animals should be puppy dog tame. A lot of people go, but you hold your lizards. And I'm not against handling reptiles. But like you say, if I never touch one of them ever, that's not why I'm not keeping them. Probably my fifth priority is to be able to handle them. Interaction is up there, but actual handle and play with and sit with this podcast, like that's not up there for me. So just to be 100% clear, people watching go, oh my God, Paul's anti-handling. I'm not, but I am anti, because like you say, again, I'm a very spiritual person. So I like the way that you're wording this in the sense that they don't have a choice and it's our ego. So I resonate a lot with that. So they don't have a choice and we don't know what's going on in their brain. They could be blissfully unaware, daydreaming about chasing locusts, and then all of a sudden this hand comes in and grabs them. We don't know. So it is important to be courteous and mindful. Like you say, if they're gravid, don't get them out to take pictures. And a lot of it is for social media. I do it. I'm a hypocrite. I do it to get followers. People like seeing my animals. There's the exchange there. There's a contract there. So
yeah, but that also means there goes a thought before you do it.
Yeah.
You take in some considerations, and that's all you need to do. That's why we also use the animals at the school, and that's why you try to make sure that that short-term stress isn't become a constant. So you have a certain amount of animals that only gets handled a certain amount of time, but you are aware of the fact that it causes stress. So you look at the cost benefit. Again, it's almost philosophical, almost keeping these animals and thinking about it. But I do get what you mean. But I simply don't have the urge, so I don't fully understand it. I never handle my animals. Also, if I see something cool, I got offered to handle meerkats and tamandus and some animals I won't pronounce on here. And I always say, "Oh, just thank you, it's okay." And it would have been such a cool experience, but
yeah,
it would be cool for a picture, and maybe I should do it for the YouTube channel. I would like it to grow, but not in that fashion.
No, I think that's important as well, though, because like authenticity is the most important thing for me. And if I'm going against my morals and my beliefs, like for example, I've been given the opportunity to go and meet a Varys, a lace monitor, in the new year, who's for a guy local to me, and he says it's a sweetheart and it's tame and stuff. So if it does come out onto me, I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be like, but
yeah, of course,
I'm not gonna say to him, "I'll give it here." Like if the animal comes to me, oh yes. But if I just even get the opportunity to sit and watch it and be in its presence, that's enough for me. I don't need the validation of saying I've held this and I've done. And I think people get animals because they want to handle them. And I just believe interaction and handling are two different entities. Like tongue feeding or scent marking or almost like dealing with certain levels of enrichment via your presence, I'm all for 100%. But like I say, getting it out for a picture for Instagram, I do it, but only I'll stand there for hours. And if it comes to me, right, get the picture. I won't take it out, wait for it to calm down, and then put it on me for a picture. Everything's on their terms.
Yeah, and maybe it doesn't really bother the animals if you want them, and even if you do it for the likes, etc. If you do it while you're aware and the animal doesn't get bothered constantly and etc. And is I'm sure those people can justify that. I'm just not. Like I said, I don't have the urge, so it's hard for me to understand. I'm sure they have a good reasoning behind it. As I mentioned, we need to be aware of the choices we make with our animals in all aspects, and handling is one of them. And that doesn't mean you can't, as you say, that you said it correctly, doesn't mean you can't interact with them. I do think it's one of the main reason I have so much success with a lot of animals. I've bred species in the past that a lot of people couldn't get going, and they always ask me, "What do you do?" And then I say, "Nothing." Nope.
Well, what do you do then? Like, is it just purely because you let them be wild and try and replicate nature as close as you can, and you just let them do what they want to do?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know for sure, of course, but thus far it has worked, and it doesn't mean I don't check on them.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean I don't, make sure everything is okay. But I make sure that the base for whatever animal is okay. Fresh water is one of the most important things to me. So even when I started this hobby, when you read a book, you read like once a week fresh water.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to think of that now, when especially when animals grab it, but in general, it needs to flush out those fluids. that's just crazy to me, you know. And if you felt the inside of a water bowl, you could feel the bacteria growth after a day or two. You know, everybody knows that feeling.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most important things to me. Being consistent, but you know, animals like some form of a routine. Unless they are less used to not having a routine, you know, they rely on the routine when that's all they have.
Yeah.
And once you disconnect that a little bit, you can be a little bit more loose with your care. So when it comes to the time you give them their food or miss them or whatever, you know. And I live a very loose life. I'm a very active person, so my animals need to be as loose as me.
The same as mine. Mine is sporadic. I don't have set feeding days. I don't have set feeding times. I also have seasons. So right now I'm in my dry and my cold season because obviously it's the winter here. So they only get majority of my stuff only get sprayed twice a week at the moment, and they only get fed twice a week at the moment. That's it.
Yeah.
I'll be in here every day. I do water every day. And if I forget or I'm busy and the next day I've done it, I feel so guilty. Because like you say, if you take a glass of water to bed, don't drink it all, and then the next day, even just drink it then and it's been sat for 12 hours, let alone 48 hours. So yeah, but again,
that's also the reason, for instance, with the water, sorry, that I clean it every day, because if there's a day I forget, even if they don't drink, the base has always been okay. The same goes with UV. I sometimes get people like, oh, my lamp broke or my UV died. I need to get it like ASAP. Like if the animal always had UV and they go out without a day or two, there are always cloudy days. You know, in summer, when it gets too hot in my rooms, I turn off all the lights. You know, as long as the base is there for them and their environment. The same goes with enrichment. And enrichment is a very cool word and a very cool thing. But we often talk about enrichment as something we need to add.
Yes.
And I feel like that the enrichment needs to be in some form always there, and that's simply by having a complex environment.
Yeah.
And so then you also again, if there's a day you don't add enrichment, it isn't a great detriment, and your base is there. And then I just leave them alone. Once in a while I'll check. I will admit perfectly that sometimes I don't see my Lantanotis for over 2 weeks. You know, because they are very cryptic species. So sometimes I check at night with my light if I see tails, and then I count the tails, or I feel in the substrate. And like, okay, they're all there, done. But that's also the type of animals I have. I mean, you have Prasinus. If you don't see your Prasinus for a day walking around and being active or reactive, there are some bells going off like, oh, what's going on here?
Yep.
So it's also, I choose certain animals for a certain reason, because it fits with the way how I keep my animals and what I can provide them.
Yeah, no, that's also another great point, because like Timorensis are incredibly cryptic, very shy species. I've moved recently, about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago now, and I've got a separate reptile room now, whereas the enclosure are a bit more sporadically dotted around the house before. Now there's a separate reptile room, and the Timorensis have become a lot more bold since being separated from high stress environments. Even though they weren't in high stress, but in comparison to what they were are in now, they were in high stress. But yeah, my baby Priscilla, I didn't see her for 2 days, and I tore the enclosure apart because I was like, she's got out. Oh my god, where's the lizard? Because like you say, and for people that like me are naturally anxious, species that you don't see are a bad idea. So you need to think about you as a person. Don't just go, oh, this animal's really cool. Because if you want to see your pet, then probably Lantanotis or Timorensis aren't a species for you, because you're going to go weeks at a time with not seeing them. But if you want an animal that's a really good display species, but all you want to do is just look at it, then maybe look at something like a Prasinus or a green tree python or something like that. So there's so much consideration to take in when you are buying an animal and thinking about what animals to buy. Like, I don't think people give it enough thought. I know I never used to. And again, like temperate species for the room. Like my room in the summer gets like nearly 30 degrees. So if I've got species like a Bronia or Europlatus, which I used to keep, bye-bye. They're not here anymore.
Yeah.
So you have to tailor your room to so much that people just don't think about.
Yeah, but that's also again something people need to experience, and I've seen a lot of other podcasts with a lot of great breeders in the States, etc., that also went through that. Like, I used to keep this and this and this and this because you like everybody, but you put so much energy in trying to keep everybody happy, but
Yep.
you're constantly looking for a middle ground. The same goes with community aquariums. You're looking for the middle ground that everybody can survive in. And you make it yourself so much easier and stress-freer if you just make an obvious choice. That's why I have 2 rooms. That's why I only keep animals from Asia. It's not because I don't like all the other species. I love everything. It's just a way for me to narrow it down to make it fit my needs and the needs of the animals.
Yeah, no, you're bang on right. And like I say, I'm narrowing down pretty much to just Jobiensis and Indicus, which are obviously pretty much exactly the same archipelago. Prasinus, again, I've got Maruki and I've got a Sarong. They're localities, for those people who don't know, they're just like little parts of Indonesia. My Jobiensis is from Batanta, so again, not far off it. And then Solomon Islands somewhere, the Indicus. And then I have Tristus, but my room's big enough that I can have my Indonesian, and then I can just have 2 Tristus, and 2 Tristus aren't going to up my room that I'm in here enough to make the Indonesian species unhappy. Because also we've not touched on care or anything at all, but I don't really mind, because this is why I don't script them, because I personally think this conversation has been possibly better than you telling me how to look after a Lanthanosis, when people can go on your channel and watch that anyway. I don't know if you agree, but I think this is a very important sort of subject that people aren't addressing on. And I lost my train of thought, but basically, like, nope, it's gone. It's completely gone.
But this is crazy. This is for the people listening. We never spoke before this podcast, so it's funny how it's 2 like animal enthusiasts going off this train with our hobby. So it's funny. Sorry if it's sometimes off track, but I sure have a lot of fun. That's for sure. And we can always do an episode about Lanthanosis too. That's no problem.
No, that's fine. I don't know what time I think we started recording around 7:45, so it's been about an hour and a half thereabouts.
Yep.
So I think that's more or less a good wrap-up point. I have 2 questions at the end of every podcast that I ask every guest. But before that, is there anything that you want to touch on that we haven't touched on, or is there anything you would like to ask me, or anything you just want to speak on quickly?
Oh, I haven't thought of that before the podcast. I'm sure after the podcast I have that, but not directly. Oh, maybe one question. Maybe because of the way we are going now. I feel like some people say, for instance, the Lanthanosis, that there is no information about them, and I constantly get asked about breeders. And again, I know, so I can't consider that, but then I feel like a lot of people feel that way or think it is that way when it comes to the information and the availability of whatever species is simply because of the channels we use now to look for information. And don't get me wrong, I think YouTube is amazing. I even for the consideration if an animal fits you, just a simple video of how it interacts with its environment is now available to you. You don't need to go to anybody else. You can just look at videos.
Yep.
But I do feel like a lot of people feel like there's not a lot of info because they still only use the new channels.
Yep.
And not the books or the scientific names or the other keepers, or just not only go to a reptile show to buy, but just talk. And I feel like that is a part of the issue some people have with finding info and those are also the people I don't often respond to, because I think to myself, you haven't used all the
Resources that are out
sources.
there.
Yeah, I don't know if that's something you experienced, but that's something I felt like maybe that's what's happening, and that's why people feel this way.
Yeah, I had I'll touch on that, but just to sort of back it up, I had a guy message me the other day on Instagram, said, "Hey mate, just got a Varanus Indicus. Any chance I could pick your brains?" And I said, "Yeah, cool," because obviously he hasn't started with I have no idea what I'm doing, or he hasn't gone so open ended. I was like, cool. He was like, "Do you mind if we video call on Instagram?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool, whatever." So I video called him. He's like, "Oh, I've got a few questions." I was like, "Cool." He was like, "Right, what size enclosure should I have?" And I was like, "Hang on, you already have this animal." He said, "Yeah." And I went, and I don't, again, I don't want to come across rude or condescending, but it's instant alarm bells. It's instant, like, Jesus Christ, you have this animal and you don't even know how big to keep it in enclosure. Anyway, so we're speaking for 20, 25 minutes on Instagram video. And by the end of it, he went, "Well, how much is all that going to cost me?" I said, "I don't," he was in America. I said, "I don't know because I'm not in the States, but my Indicus enclosure was probably maybe 1,100 Great British pounds for the enclosure and all the stuff in it." He was like, "Really, over 1,000?" I said, "Yeah." And then he was like, "How much does it cost you to keep her?" I said, "I don't have a clue, but 50, 60 pound a week. I don't know. I have so
Don't
many."
want to know.
Well, yeah. I said, "I have so many lizards. I don't know." And then he was like, "I don't think I can afford this." And I wanted to say, "You idiot." That's what I wanted to say.
Those are the people that are allowed to feel guilty.
Yeah.
And I think that's also in a lot of Facebook groups and info groups is the hardest thing to maneuver, because on the one hand, there's a person that did something impulsive and somehow is still trying to figure it out. On the other hand, and sometimes you think yourself like, find out, you should take care of it. I don't care what you do. On the other hand, there's a live animal.
Yep.
And you want to make sure that live animal gets whatever okay care that it can get. And
Yeah, it's a hard one.
yeah, and a lot of people start with give it to somebody else, sell it or whatever.
Yeah.
If you just bought an animal and you're looking for info, that's not something you want to hear.
Nope.
So then you often go, you get breaks, and you're not going to go farther. I fully understand that question. I often see people with animals like,
it's hard.
Yeah.
And I think because of social media, like I'm not on TikTok, but because of the TikTok culture of just quick hits and you scrolling through Instagram, TikTok, YouTube shorts, and you see someone with a Lantanotis, a Prasina, it doesn't matter. The list is endless. And you see the 10 seconds of what's taken someone years to figure out. And then you just go and get it. And especially with stuff like Nile monitors that are dirt cheap, you can buy them for $20 in the States. And there's just people just don't. To answer your question without beating around it, no, people don't do their research. People will message me, and I'm sure they message other people. I mainly get a lot on Indicus. I don't really get a lot on my other species. I mainly get questions on Indicus. And I do think that's because there's not a lot out there, but there also is. There's a podcast dedicated to monitor lizards. That's not this podcast, but another podcast. And one of those guys is a guy called Kai Fan, and he breeds mangrove monitors in the States. And he's not necessarily always the best at replying, similar to you and I, in the sense that he's very busy, and some people just message him going, "Yo, how to care for a lizard," and you're just like, oh. But he puts a lot of stuff on his socials, so just look, be patient. And then I figured out how to get my Indicus into reproductive cycles regularly, all by myself. I didn't talk to anybody. This was all research on the internet. So if I figured it out, and I'm not particularly the smartest guy in the world, so can somebody else, because I didn't have anyone. Because I messaged a few people trying to figure out some stuff. All my lights are going off now, so that's why I'm plunged into darkness. I messaged a few people about how to figure out like just sexing, because I couldn't find many videos on sexing indicus or information. You'd read stuff, but to an untrained eye, I'm reading it and I'm looking at it going, is that a hemipenal bulge? Is that not a hemipenal bulge? And only having one, it's hard to compare. And everyone just shot me down. And that's why, again, I put myself out there to help people, because stuff like that does take a trained eye in a way. But when you've got this base entry level, and even stuff like getting a mangrove monitor to go into vitellogenesis, you need to cool them down a bit, starve them out a bit, raise the humidity, raise the food, raise the temperatures, make sure they've had nesting the whole way through. There's so many different things. Feed them certain things at certain times of the year, feed them lean foods when they're not trying to have eggs, feed them like higher calcium foods when they are trying to have eggs, all this silly stuff. But I learned that all myself. So I do believe and know there's stuff out there. And I do believe and know there are people that will help. Like you say, if you come across correctly, if you message someone and go, hey man, I've got a Varanus indicus, I've had it for 3 weeks, I've figured out basking enclosure, this, and this. Are there any tips and tricks that you've figured out since owning yours that would make my indicus's life better? I don't mind answering that, because I'm like, all right, cool. Because even if you don't know anything, across message, you've sounded like you're keen, you know? But when you message me and you go, is this okay? And it's just a 20-gallon bare enclosure. Like, I'm not rude to people, because if you are rude to people, then that animal's going to suffer. So
yeah, it's not going to help.
No,
it's not going to help. And yeah, I totally get that. But I also like mentioned, I think with this is what I've done this how far I got, and can you help me from this? That shows just a little bit of effort, and people appreciate if you make some effort. And also, I do think now, but it's solely because my work is that when some people put those animals in a 20-gallon setup, our minds is like, look at the animal, look at where it's from, and you will know that's not fitting.
yeah,
But that's our animal caretaker's brain, and not everybody has that way of thinking. So some people can look at that 20-gallon, look at the animal, and be, it should be okay, and they are not at that as far as us, at least on that part, separate from all the other. They could be great in some financial things that I am totally bad at. I don't know, but learning that from where I work does again create some empathy almost for those people, and I can be so frustrated. But as you mentioned, going in rude and telling them directly to sell them whatever, that's not going to happen. And the fact that it's not shoes we are talking about.
No, it's a lot, and that's, like I say, that's why I put myself out on social media, is because I wanted to save the animals. And if I know I've saved a couple, and I say saved, I've put them in better conditions. And I'm not a pro at all, any of the lizards I keep, but which excites me, because then I can, like you say, I can learn more. Because I think if I ever got to a point with a species that I can't do any more with it, then I probably would go, yeah. Because for me, keeping is enjoying an animal, interacting as close to as it would naturally. Because I don't know if I'll ever see any of these in the wild. I want to see all of them, but I don't know if I ever will. So the other day I whole fed my indicus a really big fish. So she had to carcass feed, and she was using her claws and literally raking it. And I was like, oh my God, how cool is this? And it's something so simple, but just watching her, because normally she's like, bam, black, tacking it and swallows it down. But because she knew instantly, and I'd never fed her anything that she couldn't just wolf down or like bang her head on the side and straighten it. And she literally was looking at it, and you can, like you say, you see the pupils dilate. And I just sat and I just watched her, and she pupils dilate, and she's coming over to it, and she starts clawing it and nudging it with her head just to figure out where. I don't know what she was thinking, but in my head, figuring out where to start from. Obviously, it's food. I can smell its food. And then she starts to, and she literally opened it up, and she's pulling its guts out and like chunking them down and raking it. And beautiful, you know, beautiful. And that's why I keep like a lizard ripping a fish apart. Beautiful.
You almost get emotional from it.
Well, this is it. And I say to people, like, when I designed my baby tree monitor enclosure, I built like a waterfall and stuff in there and a couple of branches over the top. And in my head, the tree monitor would be perched above it and there'd be this idyllic waterfall dropping down, and I designed it all how I imagined the animal would interact. And then I come in from work one day and sure enough, she's up there where I've envisioned in my head. And it's like, because you've put so much time and resource and energy into and like going out and foraging for the live oak covered in moss, and all this effort gone into this enclosure for a lizard just to witness it sit on a branch. And I'm like, yes, this is why I keep reptiles.
That's a reward.
Exactly. But if you're keeping it in nothing but a dog bowl, one of those stupid bits of like plastic hide thing, and then a little bit of, even worse, newspaper, but like a bit of mulch, you're not enjoying your ant. No matter the species, I don't care what species you have. I don't care if it's a bloody isopod or a Salvadori. Set it up naturalistically to the best of your ability. There's levels to this. Mine aren't great. Yours are a lot better than mine, as you know, but we do our best with what we have. And as long as, like we spoke about earlier, we've gone full circle. As long as your mindset is, am I doing this properly? What can I do better? I think you've got a good base stead for husbandry. Yeah, so if that answered your question,
that's a wrap.
yeah. So the two, oh well, now everyone knows how to care for Lanthanotis. Thank you for tuning in. But I have two wrap-up questions.
Sure.
The first one is, what advice would you give to someone? We've pretty much given loads this podcast, but what advice would you give to someone just starting the reptile hobby?
Just starting the reptile hobby? Yeah, just dive in deep, enjoy the process. Don't go to, I would like to say don't go too fast, but that's sometimes difficult because we're impatient beings.
Yeah.
Visit zoos, that helps a lot. Try to talk to other people, and I know in Europe it's hard. You know, my channel, my goal was to go to a whole lot of other people's and show everybody how amazing our hobby is and what incredible things people are actually doing. But we are so private and closed off that I understand it can be difficult, but it is possible if you're just enthusiastic and are serious about what you do. Just enjoy the process. If you don't want that beginner species, maybe don't go for it, but also don't go for the craziest, rarest species. But they are beginner species for a reason. But as you mentioned, they are not a shoe, they are an animal. So if you're gonna take it, knowing that you're gonna sell it, maybe just spend that time and energy to actually learn a little bit more. And that will be me. Enjoy it also because it's great. And as you said, some people may start with the 20-gallon, but the process of getting to that placinus that's hanging from that water ball above that water ball, it's so rewarding and amazing. And then you're fully enjoying what's possible within what we are doing.
Yeah.
So that will be my advice.
No, that's perfect. 100%. I agree with all of that. And I like to say to people as well, don't be scared to make mistakes, because mistakes make you a better keeper. The more mistakes you make, the more you learn. The more that you learn, the better keeper you become.
We learn way better if we make mistakes. And of course, some mistakes, you can also learn from other people's mistakes. That's why YouTube, I do think, is a great platform, and that's why I do use it. You know, I try to at least leave something behind, and if this is it, that's okay. You know, so you can also learn from other people's mistakes. But indeed, just discover and be open to it. That will help you so much, and then it can be awesome. It can be amazing.
Yeah, no. And again, just quickly on that, and then we'll do the final question. But I watched your video today where you hatched the Lanthanotis. So again, congratulations. And you were modest and honest enough to admit that the eggs went bad, and you believed it was because obviously you'd allowed too much airflow in there and opened it up and stuff. So again, credibility for that, because I try and be as open, as honest as I can. You clearly do. But some people don't. So people can get a false perception of what it is to keep reptiles because they only show the good. But that's also social media. You only post the holiday pictures and you only post the nice dinners. So again, I wanna say thank you for like your honesty and stuff. So, and the final question, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received, not reptile related?
Oh my God.
Or the first thing that pops into your brain, because most people are like, "Oh God, you put me on the spot."
Just be nice. Yeah, it sounds so strange, but just be a little bit more. Just have a little bit of empathy or nuance.
Yeah,
towards yourself and towards others, and I think that I also show that a little bit in the way we are talking about certain topics. Like I try to not to think too black and white. Sometimes it is, but often it is not, based on your own perceptions.
I heard today that basically the insults you say to yourself in your head, like me at the moment, I'd be like, "Oh, you look fat today," to myself, but I'd never say that to a person. So why am I saying that to myself? And I would compliment someone and go, "Oh, your hair looks really great today," and then I would never say that to myself. So I think it's important to, like you say, and I'm like I say, I'm very spiritual, and I like to believe, like I said earlier in the podcast, there's your opinion, my opinion, and then the truth. And also, if I walked in your shoes, I would be acting exactly the same as you act. Or if I was walking in the poachers in Indonesia's shoes, I'd be acting exactly the same as they act. So you have to be self-aware enough to say, do you know what? I'm privileged to be in a position that I'm in, but there's also people that, well, let's word it this way, doesn't give me the right to be judgmental. Let's put it that way, because there's always people like I say to people, actually, perfect analogy, this wall is white. I say to people, if I said to my son from the day he was born, this wall's black, why would he think any different until someone challenges him?
Yeah, indeed. And like there says, there's this, that, and in the middle there's the truth. There can also be two truths or the truth, or I also have such a hard time pronouncing the word three. This one, they can multiple truths can live next to each other.
Yeah.
And over the years, once I found that out, that's
Well, this is it. There can be more than one way to skin a cat, so they say.
Absolutely, and that's why I don't mind the negative comments, because I know what I think of it, and I can also understand that other person's view, even though I don't fully agree or can't relate. So like you said, the negative comments, I'm sure I got them, but it's okay that they are there. It's okay that I decide to put it on YouTube. It's all okay.
It's the way I see it is, if someone comments negative, touch wood, I haven't really had many yet, but if I get something negative and it offends me, then there's clearly some truth in that comment. And I can't let my ego get in the way. For example, let's just say someone says this enclosure is too small and I get upset. Then there's definitely truth, because I've believed it enough for me to get upset. But if someone says this enclosure is too small and I laugh at the situation, then I'm clearly okay with my decisions. And that's how I take criticism.
Yeah, those negative or criticism comments are just, they can be a reason for you to review what you're doing. Like, oh, is this person correct? And then you think about the steps you've taken, and then you rationalize it and the decisions you made. And if you made them, being fully aware and all the things in consideration, and why you made a certain choice, not only because of the ego, but all the other stuff. And then you can say, oh, this person is actually right, or like, oh, that's not correct.
Exactly.
Either way, it's fine.
Live and let live.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your honesty. Thank you for telling us all to care about Shinosaurus and Lamphanotis.
You're welcome.
But all jokes aside, this is actually, I didn't expect it to go this way, but I'm very glad that it did. And this has been an absolutely incredible conversation. And again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all the work that you put into your YouTube as well. You make great videos. I'll put all your links in the description anyway.
Thank you so much.
But yeah, you make great videos. You make great content. It's very informative. And even for someone as simple as I am, you'd teach me how to be able to do water and pH levels and all that other fun stuff. So anyone who's interested in that sort of stuff,
100% sure you're not simple.
I'm very emotionally intelligent, but
Okay.
academically,
Again, you can't have a goldfish climb a tree.
that's literally my Facebook bio. Like
Yeah.
literally that's saying, so that's the best piece of advice. That's what we should have said. If you judge a fish on its ability to climb, it will spend its whole life thinking it's stupid.
Yeah.
There we go. Perfect ending. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for the work you do. Thank you for basically just breeding one of the coolest lizards in the world that you don't even really like, and they're not top of your pinnacle tree.
They're cool enough. They're cool enough.
They definitely are. But again, thank you so much, man. I appreciate this.
Thank you for having me on.
No, that's no worries at all. Right. Thank you for listening, guys. I'll catch you all in a bit. And